Hey everybody! This is Death by D4, and welcome to my guide on how to play as the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer subclass in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. There's a lot to go over, so be sure to subscribe and let's dive right in. When you take this subclass at first level, you get Psionic Spells, which expands the number of spells available to you as a sorcerer. Best of all, none of these spells count towards your spell's known limit, meaning that you'll always have access to them whenever you need them. And to top it all off, whenever you gain a level in Sorcerer, you can switch out any of these spells for any other Sorcerer, Warlock, or Wizard spell of equivalent level from the schools of Divination and Enchantment. Wow, talk about some serious flexibility. And of all the options initially available to you, I'm gonna give a special shout out to Dissonant Whispers, Mind Sliver, and Evert's Black Tentacles, as these are just awesome spells for you to gain access to as a sorcerer. You also get Telepathic Speech at first level, which allows you to use your bonus action to form a telepathic connection between you and another creature within 30 feet. While connected in this way, you and the other creature can telepathically communicate with each other while within a number of miles equal to your charisma modifier, for up to a number of minutes equal to your sorcerer's level. Oh, and the connection also ends early if you use this feature again, if you're ever incapacitated, or if you ever die. A pretty nice feature overall, though also one that I feel is not really all that effective. Sure, it is a free means of keeping in contact with your allies, but considering its extremely short time limit coupled with its incapacitation restriction, I just don't really think you're gonna find much use for it when compared to other spells out there. All in all, an alright feature for you to get, but certainly nothing crazy. At 6th level, you get Psionic Sorcery, which allows you to use your sorcery points to cast spells from your Psionic spell list. And whenever you cast them in this way, the spell doesn't require any verbal, somatic, or material components unless they are consumed by the spell. A pretty nice feature overall, especially for the material components bypass, as that will allow you to cast spells like Summon Aberration without actually requiring its costly component. That and, if you're lacking much of any reason to use any of your sorcery points for literally anything else, then you can just toss them into casting these spells, as doing so will then help extend the longevity of your spell slots. Definitely a really convenient feature for you to get, and one that you're bound to get a lot of mileage out of over time. You also get Psychic Defenses at 6th level, which grants you resistance to psychic damage and advantage on saving throws made against being charmed or frightened. Certainly nothing crazy, but still a really nice feature for you to have. So let's move right along. At 14th level, you get Revelation in Flesh, which allows you to use your bonus action to expend 1 sorcery point and magically transform yourself for 10 minutes. While transformed in this way, you gain one of the following benefits: the ability to see invisible creatures within 60 feet that aren't behind total cover, you gain a flying speed equal to your walking speed and the ability to hover, you gain a swimming speed equal to twice your walking speed and the ability to breathe underwater, or the ability to squeeze yourself into a narrow space as small as 1 inch wide, and can spend 5 feet of movement to escape from any non-magical grapple or restraint. Wow! I'm not gonna lie, but these are some pretty awesome features for you to get in general, especially since none of these actually require your concentration, meaning you could very easily adapt yourself to any situation you may come across. Definitely a really solid feature for you to get, and one that you're bound to get a lot of use out of over time. And finally, at 18th level, you get Warping Implosion, which allows you to use your action to teleport to an unoccupied space within 120 feet of you, leaving a 30-foot radius implosion in your wake. Each creature caught within the implosion must succeed on a strength saving throw, or take 3d10 force damage and be pulled straight towards the center, taking half damage and not being pulled on a successful save. You can use this feature again by spending 5 sorcery points, or by waiting to recharge it after a long rest. Okay, so, though the potential of this feature is actually incredible, it's also not really all that effective. After all, there's no stopping the implosion from hitting your allies when you use it. Not to mention you can't even use your Careful Spell metamagic feature either, as that only applies to spells and this isn't a spell. Still, for when you're actually entirely surrounded by your enemies, or just in need of a short-range teleport really badly, then this feature's got you covered. Especially since you can then follow up this ability with your Quicken Spell metamagic, and then stick all of your enemies right in the middle of one of your AoE spells. However, even in this instance, that's really all this feature actually has going for it, which is kind of a shame. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still really awesome, but it's just such a cumbersome feature for you to use that I don't really know how often you're actually going to be able to use it effectively. So yeah, an alright feature for you to get, though one that still works pretty well as a capstone feature for this particular subclass. Alright, that does it for all the subclass features. Now onto just a few of my own personal recommendations concerning it. When picking a race for yourself, maybe just don't play as a Kalistar, as a lot of the features offered by this race are actually shared somewhat with this particular subclass. So despite how appropriate it might sound, you'll just gain a lot more out of playing another race entirely. Besides that, when picking your metamagics for yourself, I would just highly recommend taking Quicken Spell, as not only will that synergize with your Warping Implosion feature at 18th level, but also with Mind Sliver, as that will then synergize when paired up with another one of your saving throw spells. Now, as for feats, Metamagic Adept could actually go a really long way for you, as not only will it allow you to load up on even more metamagic options for yourself, but it'll also boost up your sorcery point total, which you could then put towards your class features that revolve around them. Of course, for the purpose of theming, you could take Telekinetic, if having an invisible mage hand or shoving your enemies around your AoE spells of his interest to you, but in that regard, I would actually not recommend taking Telepathic unless you really want to, as you won't actually gain a whole lot for taking it with this particular subclass. Finally, let's talk about spells. Now, when it comes to selecting your spells, be sure to take careful consideration of which spells you might want to switch out with your psionic spells, as doing so will help open up your options to certain spells normally unavailable to sorcerers. That said, there are not too many good options for you to consider otherwise, but if you like my recommendation still, consider taking Identify, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, or Arcane Eye, as each of these spells could be pretty useful for you as a sorcerer. After all, with your twin spell Metamagic and Tasha's Hideous Laughter, you can then lock down 2 creatures instead of the usual one, which is pretty handy for a first level spell. And that's it. If you liked the video, then be sure to subscribe and let me know what you think down in the comments below. And if you'd like to have the chance to play D&D with me, then feel free to join my Discord server, and consider supporting me over on Patreon. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see all of you in the next video.